So, I think of you as a solo guitarist. I know you've also recorded with an organ trio, and maybe you do a lot of other stuff too. But I think of you solo. So it's hard to think of Tim Lerch without thinking about solo guitar as a primary thing. So I was curious to ask you, like, you know, anybody who's into solo jazz guitar knows the Ted Greene solo guitar record, and they might know um, some of the Joe Pass virtuoso records. But I'm curious to know: are there other solo guitar records that you like, that have inspired you, that might be a little more kind of under the radar?
Mm. I've been searching my whole life for that. Some of what motivates me to play the way I play is that I want to hear it,
Hmm.
and there aren't a lot of people making records. I suppose if Ted made 10 more records and there were 13 other guys who did it too, I probably wouldn't have to play because I could just, but I'll think about that for a second. What comes to mind real quick is Earl Klug made at least one, maybe two solo guitar records, two, I think.
Hmm.
Midnight Guitar and so. And Earl is a really, really beautiful player. He plays a fairly kind of popular style when he is with a band, but he made a trio record with Ron Carter and I don't remember the drummer, and he's made these two solo guitar records at least, and they're absolutely beautiful. His playing conception is quite wonderful. It's Lenny Breau inspired, and he plays, swings great and plays great. He doesn't play the whole sort of Ted orchestral thing. He strips it down and plays a much more kind of elegant, almost Bill Evans-esque kind of
Hmm.
approach.
Oh,
Earl is
wow.
a wonderful player, and I think a lot of people overlook him because he makes records that are, with a band that are popular, not quite smooth jazz, but maybe fall into that category. So
Right, right.
Earl is definitely somebody.
Huh.
Um, and I mean, I love Ed Bickert, and although he hasn't made solo guitar records, he's made a couple of duo records where when the instrumentalist that he's playing with or the singer that he's playing with, goes away, stops playing. It's that there's that.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh, and but to be honest with you, Adam, I am really not inspired so much by guitar players as I am by piano players, organ players, orchestras, mostly orchestras.
Mm, mm.
Uh,
Cool.
so, I mean, Nelson Riddle is sort of my and Billy May, those two guys, especially when they're writing for strings rather than a big band,
Hmm.
really ring my bell.
Oh, wow. So
So
if people don't know those names,
yeah,
like, where could you hear a
Frank
Nelson Riddle
Sinatra
arrangement?
records.
Okay, right,
Yeah. So
right.
here's my tactic, and I don't know if I backed into this or whatever, but I want to when I learn a song, I want to learn it well.
Yeah.
And instead of only looking at a sheet, I'm not one of these guys that says don't look at the real book or don't look at sheet music. I like to do that, but I also accompany that with a kind of research. Lately on YouTube, it's so much easier to do because you don't have to go out and buy the records.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
often come to Frank Sinatra as being the singer who really I can gets the lyric across and sings the melody in a pure way without a lot of jazz inflected melismas and things. The problem with jazz singers is, as great as they are, like you try and learn a song by listening to Billie Holiday, and you're not going to hear the melody. You're going to hear her thing.
Right.
And then you can hear that later, but after you know the song and appreciate it. But I always find Frank Sinatra is where I like to go, and Julie London as well. Julie London is a similar singer in that she doesn't do a lot of Scooby Dooby Doo. She just sings the song.
Hmm.
And so, Julie had made all these records with the guitar players that we love, Barney Kessel and Howard. I think Howard Roberts was on one, and then a guy who not a lot of people know about. His last John Gray. He was a sort of Howard Roberts like player from the same era.
Huh.
And Julie made these great records, and she was on TV because she was kind of a star, and she was married to Bobby Troop, I think.
Yeah, right.
He was in that business. So Julie and Frank are my go-to people for learning songs.
Hmm.
And then Julie had these great guitar players and sometimes orchestrations. But Frank always had these really beautiful orchestrations, often by Nelson Riddle or Billy May. I may be missing some, others, but and there's a lot to love about those records not the New York era, but prior to that. When he
Right.
was singing records full of standards.
Right.
There was great shooping guitar
Hmm.
by Al Viola, I think it was the main guy that did it. And you can really hear it because Frank liked that. And so, to hear shooping guitar on a record sometimes is difficult.
Right.
It gets buried under a big band. But on those records, it's right there in that beautiful mid-range. So I love those orchestrations. And a lot of the stuff, that I do, like if I play, let's see, the 2-5-1 in B flat, right? I might play, sorry, I'll try that again. It's early in the morning. That kind of stuff to me comes from imitating an orchestra rather than, paying attention to guitar players.
Right. I really hear that. I really hear that. Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's really interesting because piano players are wonderful. Guitar players are interesting sometimes, and we get excited about them. But Nelson Riddle knows about line movement way, way more than most of your average jazz guitar players, right?
Sure.
And so to hear, Frank singing Angel Eyes, and to hear a line over the C minor chord that is really chromatic and quite odd, but sounds incredible. And the oboes playing this, anyway, I'm a
Yeah.
geek about that kind of stuff.
Oh man, that's really inspiring. I got to go back to those. I got to go back to those
Oh yeah,
records.
please do.
Uh, I'm curious. What was one of the first tunes that you arranged for solo guitar when you first started getting into it?
Oops, there it is. That's it.
Wow.
And I had help along the way. I have a little story. I had that tune when I went to my first lesson with Ted, and that was kind of my audition tune or something for, because I was told, he didn't really tell me this, but I was told by a friend who had given me Ted's number, oh, well, if you're going to go see Ted, he likes to write everything down, which turned out to be not true. But I wrote a little kind of cryptic, kind of high school, badly notated thing of Body and Soul. And then I played it for him. And it was probably something like, and then I played a wrong diminished chord. I mean, it was, it was my first attempt. And then Ted hipped me to this little thing, which got me started down a road, which I'm still on, which is inner line movement inside of chord progressions. And he said, why don't you try this?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Instead of like just blocky stuff, which is I
Yeah,
guess where we
yeah.
all
So
start.
the fluid harmony thing that I'm so addicted to,
Hmm.
and Ted, that was the first time anybody had talked to me about that, and he showed it to me, and I still leave it in there, kind of as a tribute. I took it a little further than what he showed me. He showed me the first three moves, and then he played something which I have on tape somewhere. But anyway, that tune, Body and Soul, for the uninitiated, in the key of D flat. it was to me, it was like this big accomplishment because it was a more complicated tune. Not as complicated, it turns out, as I thought it was at the time. Uh, but
Right.
it is one of those tunes, and I would listen to Coleman Hawkins play it and get inspired by the kind of lines he was playing.
Hmm.
Uh, and Alone Together was right in there as well. Um, that one was an early one. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
there are so many standards in what we, I guess we call the Great American Songbook. What is it about certain tunes that attract you?
um, there's a lot. Not in any particular order. A melody that I feel is singable and it makes sense to me. That's not a value judgment on any other level than how it affects me inside, in my ears and my brain. I like lush things. So I tend to live on the quieter, slower side of the musical spectrum, especially as I mature. I think you may do also.
Yeah.
I think there's enough frantic, noisy stuff going on, and it's all good, and I love it. I'm a huge fan of Ornette Coleman, you know.
Yeah.
I love that type of playing. I love Charlie Parker, really a lot. But I also love sort of that narcotic Bill Evans thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so beautiful tunes, sentimental tunes with that weep a little are attractive to me.
Hmm.
I like lushness, and so I'm not as crazy about the little cute 251, 36251 short form tunes,
Right.
but I play those too. I'm not opposed to that, but I really love sort of beautiful melody living inside of, changes that I can understand, because I do also love and really live more in a tonal world than where there's functioning harmony.
Yeah.
As much as I love Wayne Shorter's work, I love that, but it's not what I wake up thinking about.
Right.
At least these days. I did
Yeah.
when I was younger. I loved all that stuff. I still
Sure.
do.
Well,